definitely raising eyebrows across the footy world, across the Alberton fraternity.
What are we seeing here?
Even at board level. Look, this is on X, this is in all manner of social media. Warren Tredrea, as we know, had strong views on vaccines back in the COVID days. He's a Robert F. Kennedy supporter, for example. He has some very strong and unusual political views.
You know how many of my friends have actually got heart problems from the jab? And I'm like, now people are happy to talk about it. Back then, you're a weirdo, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a nutter, you're a cooker. I mean, I just don't think anyone who's regretting it is ever regretting not getting it. I'd always question things I didn't think was right. And then it was like, we're going to put a mandate in. And I was like, hang on. I said, we've just gone 2 years. Effectively, the game has played. Yes, it's been restricted from fans, but the fact that this is provisionally approved, we just probably need a little bit of caution beforehand. The intuition kicked in, education from my wife, then starting to go down a few rabbit holes to look into this health stuff. And I was 100% vindicated, but it was a simple, almost very, very difficult decision, but it was very simple. I said, do I want to put this in my body? No. And then I went back and said, hang on, you said it's not credible. I said, someone's just said it. We've all seen it. Isn't it worth just like digging into and asking? Because I was a news hound. I was like, well, and as a parent, I got 3 kids. I want to know if I'm going to give my kid this vaccine, it's going to be safe. It was dismissed. Oh, no, I don't have time. It's unregulated. It's close to deadline. I was like,
better place in Australia you've ever seen.
Alright, g'day everyone. Welcome to SkyDev Podcast. We're back again, myself, me, Madeleine, Doherty. And we're honoured to have Warren Tredrea on today, the former Port Adelaide Premiership Captain and disgraced media personality. I shouldn't say that. Former media personality and now new host of the Ballsy podcast, which I've just listened to the first few and they've been awesome. I particularly liked your last one with I keep forgetting his name, the
Corey White,
comedian. He was, if you haven't listened to that one, Mads, that's absolutely brilliant. But so we appreciate you giving us your time today. I don't know, like, kind of where we want to start here, but I guess the interest of us and our audience would probably be the journey that you've been on since 2020. As you know, there was a lot of us at that time that were kind of confused about what was going on, and there seemed to be a lot of overreach with what was happening with the vaccines and all the rest of it. And you were one of the few people in the public eye that I guess probably took a stance and copped a bit of backlash for it, yourself and Pete Evans and a few others. So I don't know where you want to start. We do have some international listeners, so maybe explain who you are and what AFL is.
Well, AFL's Aussie Rules, which is the Australian football code, Aussie Rules football. To explain to them, probably Google it and watch how stupid a game it is. I played that for 14 years professionally. We're lucky enough to have success in 2004 when we won. Had multiple injuries, retired at the end of 2010, should I say. Then went into media. So my whole plan was go footy. Didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, hoping footy worked out. Well, footy worked out. I had a career, got paid really well, set myself up, was married with 3 kids. And then 2010, when retirement finished, I decided, hey, I want to do this media thing full time. So when I say media, it's commentating games, it's presenting potentially news or working on radio. So I started on breakfast radio. I hated the hours, 4 o'clock wake up. I think I might have been the only person I know of that can fall asleep standing up in the shower. That's how much I hated the morning. I did it for a cold shower to wake me up, put the warmth on, fell asleep and headbutted the wall. So that was telling me breakfast radio wasn't for me. At that stage, I was writing for News Corp, which is the Adelaide Advertiser, which is one of the about football content. So I'd write a column a week. I'd do brekkie radio. I'd commentate for the footy, and then I had a spot on Channel 9. At the end of 2013, that flipped. So I gave up brekkie radio. I won I was lucky enough to be employed as the 6 p.m. news presenter on 9, sports presenter. So I didn't present news angles. I presented the sport angle, which is always the job I wanted to do. I was always a loyal person. I did my cadetship in media. I didn't do any tertiary study, but you could do a cadetship, so a placement. I did it at Channel 9 at Tin Street Studios, where the old Winky Dink and what else was there? Fat Cat was done back in the day for anyone who's of my vintage, and I'm 46 or older. So I got that gig. It was sort of flying hours, just learning to do it, combining it with the newspaper and radio commentary. And a lot changed in my life at the end of 2016. Ex-wife decided she wanted to go to greener pastures, went through divorce. Probably one of the biggest blessings and learnings from that was around compatibility and where we were aligned or where we're not. It was difficult, certainly difficult with 3 young kids of, I think, 5, 7 and 9. Juggling all those bits and pieces, selling off assets, doing all that. And then at the end of that year, when I say the end of that year, I use years in footy years. So around September, I met a young lady by the name of Bianca, who is now my wife, who had 2 children. So we've got a blended family of 5 kids. It's the Brady Bunch. People talk about it. And from there on in, Bianca was always really wide awake in terms of the world. She's probably ahead of her game in terms of running a yoga studio. So that's how I met her, because I'd had some injuries, but no ever groin injuries playing sport. But I got them trying to lift the desk, and when I'm not training as much, got injured. So I took up yoga for 2 reasons: to get fitter, but then I also thought this bird who owns it's good looking. So eventually we ended up in a relationship and now married, been together about 9 years, juggling all those bits and pieces of exes and relationships with young kids, and week on, week off, all those things that a lot of people are experiencing. And it's funny because when I did get married the first time, the divorce rate was 30%. Now it's close to 60. So for now that kids are doing it, it's not like it's foreign. It's quite common. So that was a challenge. But Bianca's always been in a space of understanding the health, the vaccine schedules, whether kids should have it or not. If I knew my time back then, I would certainly not do what I did back in the day because of the information cycle. And for me, it was always around sport, news, tell the truth. And then there was a really wake-up moment around the year of 2020 when COVID hit the shores. I still remember, as a 9 presenter, I was sent to Melbourne to host the Adelaide Sport from the Melbourne Park tennis, because Channel 9 had the rights. They were talking about this virus in China, and I still thought it was like the bird flu thing that never affected us. And it was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, in the space of 2 months, Australia shut down. In South Australia, it was a bit different. I think we shut down because someone had an infected pizza box, which was ridiculous. For about 4 days we did, and then that shut down. But then if you look at what Dan Andrews did to Victoria, I think it's criminal. And people were locked in their homes for near on a year and a half over a 2-year period. But for me, when I was in the studio, I'd go how the bulletin would work over an hour. At around the 25-minute mark, it'd be, hey, now we have a break. What's coming up in sports? So I'd promote what's happening up in about 30 minutes time in the sports bulletin. But before every bulletin I did at that tease, it was effectively overseas stories. But this period, it was COVID stories. So the thing that woke me up, guys, was pretty much off the back of, one, investigating on all sorts of non-mainstream media, Telegram, the like, and sitting back and going, hang on, there's studies in Israel that says if you're 4th or 5th time jab, you're more likely to catch COVID. And I'm like, oh, hang on. So all of a sudden, my old manager, when he used to negotiate my contract, he's no longer with us, Jeff Motley, used to say, didn't pass the sniff test. If it doesn't smell good, if it smells a bit off, then it's not right. So for me, COVID didn't pass it pretty early on. And I'm speaking to people on my podcast now exactly that. I spoke to Jared Rennick about it. Pete Evans, I've spoken about it. Corey White, who's a comedian and a criminal lawyer, has spoken about that. We all have these similar things, probably like you guys too, because I've sort of watched your journey over the time, and obviously spent some time with Dale when we travelled around Australia, but also when he was in South Australia. And I think you guys are coming to Adelaide in a couple of weeks' time, which we'll see you there at.
Yes.
But the big thing for me was it didn't pass the sniff test. Why? Because, one stage they said, you take this vax, you won't get it. Oh, okay. And it takes me back a couple of years earlier, 2013, Bupa rolled out the flu jabs at Channel 9. And I'd always had one from footy because they said, oh, yeah, most likely not get it. But I've had a history of not even thinking, but every time, he's crook as a dog.
Yeah.
The doc would go, oh, yeah, you're okay. So long as I trust my doc, and that was always fine. But then this one time I had it at 9, we're about to move from the old Tin Street into the new studios in Perry Street in the centre of town. And I was bedridden for 3 days. A stage where you've got that big a fever, you're just going to bed with a towel, wiping yourself down, crook as a dog. So I said, I'm never having any of this shit ever again. So then when COVID hits, it was like, hang on, this was another reason why it didn't smell right. So then they said, well, if this jab, which I knew was rushed to market, I knew it was only, I used the word emergency approval, but it was provisionally approval because you need to go through a longer process for it to be fully approved. You take it, you won't get it. And I thought, well, how'd that work for my flu? Not well. Then they go, oh, no, you'll still get it, but you'll get a lesser version of it. I'm like, okay. And then 6 weeks later, it's going, oh, you'll still get it. You'll get the lesser version, but you won't die from it. And then you won't transmit it. And then you'll perfect grammar. And every time, in footy terms, the goalpost kept getting moved. So that's why, for me, it didn't pass the sniff test. And then, I didn't think the network was going to put in a mandate. End up putting in a mandate. They told me they weren't going to. Then all of a sudden, I'm effectively stood down in November 2021. That was after I'd gone over and above in my role, talking personally about an experience of a great Port Adelaide legend and what he meant to me, not just in my role, but extra content. Always a yes person. Let's do more. Let's do better. Let's make us number one. I was really loyal and competitive and had opportunities to leave.
I was going to say, in that period too, I remember, I can't remember which football show it was on, but they highlighted something.
Classified.
Yeah. What did you actually say? And it got kind of like, that was the first time I'd heard pretty much anyone in the media, and it wasn't much that you said. It was pretty much, like I think you were just saying that people should have their own choice, or we need to. So what did you actually say?
It was on Nine's own TV show, Classified. Yeah. And it was Carolyn Wilson who decided to make an issue out of it. So what I effectively said, and I was starting to be cautious on this at the time, going, oh, I don't know. And it was in that period between the footy season ending in September and the mandate happening in November, end of November, the December 1. And they said, well, what do you think about the AFL said they're going to put out mandates? And I'd heard multiple stories of people speaking out and all the fans ringing and going, this is bullshit. Well, we've just effectively, fans had donated their money, never seen a game in Victoria, limited in every other state around the country. 700 players have travelled around the country and done that pretty well, unobstructed within reason. And then it was like, we're going to put a mandate in. And I was like, hang on. I said, we've just gone 2 years. Effectively, the game has played. Yes, it's been restricted from fans, but the fact that this is provisionally approved, we just probably need a little bit of caution beforehand because, I quoted Greg Hunt, the federal health minister at the time. He says the greatest vaccine trial the world's ever seen. And that's still come out in my trial, in my court case with Channel 9. And I was just like, wow, some people were seeing it, some people weren't. Oh, no, it's what you have to do to, save grammar or keep your job or all that sort of stuff. So in the end, the edits were cut up that night. And I got a phone call from the producer at the footy show who I'd gone over and above and helped with, but never worked on that show. And they said, oh, they might get some kickback. I said, well, what for? So I ended up staying up because it was pre-recorded about 8 o'clock. Oh, no, Carolyn's had a crack at you. So the guy, Matt, who I know, really reasonably well at the time, he goes, oh, no, it'll be fine, it'll blow over. So in the end, they've cut it up to stage, and she's called me an anti-vaxxer. She's called me in not reading the room. I said, hang on. All I said was, I think it just needs to be a bit of caution. It's new. Footballers aren't at risk. Young people aren't at risk. Healthy people aren't at risk. All the things that the government was saying. And it got cut up. And then I got called into the boss's office, got told off. I said, well, I had no intention of doing that. So just asked my opinion because I had a regular spot on this radio show, which was walk across the studio from Channel 9 studios to the 5AA studios and talk about it. People, rang in and said they don't agree. Other people said, yeah, no, that's fine. I think that's fair. This is before mandates were even really bounced, if you know what I mean. So then that was created an issue. So it's clearly someone from interstate, I'm suspecting Melbourne or Sydney's news at 9 and big bosses have taken umbrage to what I said. And I said, well, I apologise. I didn't mean to cause any harm. They had one complaint from a viewer, which in TV lands, that's nothing. Even though it went back on, Carolyn Wilson wanted to debate it on the radio station. I said, I'm not here to debate this topic. I then revisited it and said, hey, I'm not giving medical advice. See your doctor like everyone says. But, it was just an opinion at the time and didn't mean da. So I did the right thing.
Unlike all the other news presenters like Stefanovic and that were telling you to go get it.
Yeah, well, they had that big campaign at the time. And I know some of the Adelaide presenters didn't want to record that, but they felt like they had to. They got told to.
And Matt, you don't know who Caroline Wilson is because you probably don't because you're not into football. But her husband, her husband was a former journalist, but he went to work, I think in 2019, for the Andrews government as like I can't remember the role. It was like media. He was working with
Head of media, yeah.
head of media within the Victorian government. And then so she's having a go at Warren about, a very common sense remark.
But yeah, that for me opened my eyes to this stuff. So hang on, so no one's got an issue here. Even my boss Jeremy at the time said, I just wish you're one of us. I wish they would have just rung us and said, or just not listen to it. So effectively, what they do is look after their own. But I got thrown under a bus. So whether that was a direction from somewhere, I don't know. But it's funny, since I started doing my podcast, The Ballsy Show, I spoke to Senator Rennick, who I love what he stands for. I don't know him personally, but I love the fact that he just picks the fight and stands for what he stands. He goes, you know what, in my podcast, he said, Traders, you know what? It's illegal for pharmaceuticals to advertise pharmaceuticals, to pay the government to fund. And also, journo, who's recently stepped down, might or might not be related to a former chairman of the network, actually got reprimanded. And he got reprimanded because he started questioning the narrative. But anyone who knows, there's been multiple media outlets reprimanded from the Victorian government because they didn't toe the line. You don't toe the line, you don't get the commercial sponsorship money, which funded all those ads. Yeah. Get vaxxed.
Yeah. Well, it was almost like because either they hide advertising within a news story, like they do it all the time on those morning shows. They bring someone and talk about like some company or whatever, but it's an advertisement, and it was like we had a 3-year advertisement of Pfizer on TV with like every news story, not the actual commercials. It's just every news story.
Yeah. And every high-profile person. That's why I got a lot of time, and I don't know him super well, but Andrew Bogut, the NBA superstar, former Australian former superstar, won a championship, the biggest game. He told on his podcast, Rogues Bogues, I think it is, that the government offered him $20,000 to push the narrative.
That's right.
And he said, I'm not doing it. But I know of all these other people, and I don't know if they receive money, but I've seen Adam Goods, I've seen Jonathan Thurston's, I've seen music people, Jimmy Barnes, I think even did it. There's a number of people who push this narrative, and I don't know if they're being paid, but I know that Bogut offered money and he got rejected. So, and he's told them where to go.
Yeah. Well, that brings up an interesting question, and I'll let you chime in, Mads, if you want. But like Goods was promoting it for pregnant women. That was what he went on there for.
Yeah, that's right.
But
and it's not tested for pregnant women.
No, yeah, exactly. That's why that was one of the worst. But it brings up an interesting point about Bogut, because he's a guy who's obviously, there's a lot of freedom that comes with your own money, and that guy's got a lot of his own money, and good on him. But it means that he can't be bought, and $20,000 to him is nothing. But I think that's the important part about your story, because I know there'd be so many other people within media and public personalities that would feel the same way about you, but they go along to get along, or they've done it for their own reasons. And I'm not here to judge people on why they've done it. A lot of people did it for their family and stuff like that, but it does bring a few people that stand out from the rest too, because everyone that went through that period, I think we've all gained a lot. Those that took a stance and got a new trajectory, but it's especially hard for people that have got a public image, because it's you're losing. It's not just financial loss, but it's a popularity and an image that you've gained over time. So how's that changed for you as far as like your public perception and getting future employment, and what was it within you that gave you that courage to take that step? Because you must have known, I guess, the backlash. So what was it? Something inside? Was it an intuitive thing? Was it your wife in the back of your ear?
Yeah, well, it was clearly the wife, who is super smart, Bianca. She gets it.
I think it's funny. Health journey starts with a woman, doesn't it?
Well, mate, it does. We're dumb as dog shit. Like, let's be honest.
Do you agree, Mads? Is that?
Oh yeah.
So you agree we're dumb as dog shit? Thanks, Mads.
Right, well, my mum's been a no jabber since like many decades. And mum goes, "Your bloody father wouldn't have known nothing."
Yeah, well,
I think women are the inspiration. I think women are the inspiration.
Yeah.
In either direction. Could be good or bad.
Yeah, well, my wife suggests that the women are the leaders in the spiritual realm and the
Yeah.
men are the leaders in the physical realm. But yeah, the way my body contour is going, I'm not doing too much in the physical realm right now. But
I get the question is like,
Yeah.
what brought about that courage? Because it was a rare thing, especially for someone in your position. So, like, what were you thinking at the time? Why did you do that?
I've likened it a bit to what I'm doing on this podcast. I've asked these people, why are you a why person? And I go, huh? I'm someone that goes, why? Why are we doing it? And Mike Choco Williams used to hate it. Question. I'm not criticizing a question. I'm just asking, give me a reason why. Like, we're going to carry bricks up a hill for 10 Ks. What are we trying to do? Like, they're not going to be good for your back. It's going to be stupid. Like, can't we just train harder and smarter on grass? Or, I mean, that's a bad example. But for me, why was like, well, why are we doing stuff? If you don't question, then you're open up to be manipulated by anyone. And I've always sort of been that. I was accused to be the dork. I was someone never played around. I never out drinking with the boys. When I did, I'd get pissed and that'd be fun. And then you have your release and go back to being professional. But for me, it was never about all that extra stuff. It was always about what was authentic to me. And I didn't probably even use the word authentic for the last 30 years of my life. But I was always the stage, if I'm not going to go out and drink and stand up in a nightclub after a game of footy because I'd had knee injuries, they're going to swell. Well, that's just a stupid reason. You're like, well, why? Why would you put your football career at risk? So then it got to these stages, as you touch on then, Dale, was like, it didn't add up to me. There was heart issues in my family. I spoke to my doctor. He said, don't do it, not now. So I got an exemption from this from him. Wasn't eligible for the South Australian government green tick because our industry wasn't mandated. Over in South Australia, only aged care and health got mandated. So I was always going to go, and Nine's policy was you're either double vax or you get a green tick. So the only way to get a green tick was to catch COVID, isolate, right, or come back and actually have a reason from a cardiologist. But then we all know the stories that made it harder for doctors to do all this sort of stuff. And quickly, it was funny that by the first week in January 4, I got an email. I was crook in bed with, waiting for a positive test, which eventually came. It came 4 hours after I was dismissed from Nine Network. I was entitled to an exemption. So how things align. But to get back to your original question, it was effectively, I'm not going to do shit unless I want to do it. And it's almost like that stubborn kid, the 2-year-old or 3-year-old going, strong-willed. I was just that person. I'm not going to do it unless it adds up.
Were you always like that? And maybe you just didn't have the intuition or the knowledge about the subject until it came up?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also too, I look at, mine was very much an idea of work hard or train hard, get results. To a stage in footy, I had a really big knee injury where I started to work hard, train hard, but my body, my mind was cashing checks. My body couldn't deliver in a footy sense. So for me, I started to get a better understanding of me as an individual. And there it turned into what was I going to do? How was I going to stand up? I'd always question things I didn't think was right. And the more you standing in the football world or media world gives you that confidence that what you're doing is pretty good, you sort of get that confidence to go, you know what? No, I don't think we do that. Can I give you an idea? Or I'm always a little bit of a negotiator, a little bit of a challenging. Let's start thinking. Let's start doing different ideas. I wasn't just the presenter. I'd throw stories to people, get exclusive stories, give it to other guys. So I was always this person that always looked for a little bit more. But as you say, the intuition kicked in, education from my wife, then starting to go down a few rabbit holes to look into this health stuff. And I was 100% vindicated, but it was a simple, almost very, very difficult decision, but it was very simple. I said, do I want to put this in my body? No. So mind the French, fuck anything else. That's my decision. That's my decision. And if this happens, we'll find a way. And one of the first things we did, guys, and I'll be quick on it, was we'd actually bought a place next door from where we were renting at Westlakes down on the lake, bought it. We'd done plans, spent significant money, ready to build our dream home, had the loans all sorted, route to, kick out the tenant and bulldoze and build and do all that. We sold. We had to sell. So I lost all my income, which is about $300,000 a year, to no income, locked out of football because I wasn't mandated. So lost my media job, lost my radio commentary job, lost the paper thing, front page of the paper, called an anti-vaxxer. They did a cartoon where they had Brenton and Kate, who were the presenters, and then they had Now Time for Sport, and they had a picture of the germ, the COVID germ. Should have sued them.
Really?
Yeah, so I was effectively called a germ on the thing.
Oh,
I actually saw that for the first time in my trial against Nine.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's been a really tough challenge from a from a financial side, because I'm still trying to rebuild. I've gone back to do a little bit of radio stuff, but I'm probably perceived now from outside as the problem child, just because I just said this is not for me. I never said no one else take it, and I actually toyed with, do I just get it to keep my job? But then it just was, well, how many more? All this, and how much do you want to compromise your own beliefs just for those simple things? And I don't regret the situation. It's been very difficult, but I protected my kids from it. And I just, people might think it's ridiculous, but it's funny. I was just in town briefly, and that's why we had to delay coming on and chatting to you guys. And I ran into a former AFL player and a guy I met who was in, I assume, the banking sector. And he goes, well, why didn't you get it? And I said, some issues with this. You know how many of my friends have actually got heart problems from the jab? And I'm like, now people are happy to talk about it. Back then, you're a weirdo, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a nutter, you're a cooker. I mean, I just don't think anyone who's regretting it is ever regretting not getting it.
Well,
sadly, on the other case, they are.
If you do the right thing and you know what is true, then it will eventually always be proven to be so. And I heard Robert Kennedy say this when he said the average person has 100 dreams and a sick person has one. And the one dream is to get healthy. There's no price on your health, and then ultimately your soul, because going against what you know to be right. That's tough.
Yeah, I think part of what's happening now is some people, and I know people that did take it that didn't want to take it, part of that is suppression of what they knew was the right thing to do that's actually causing the illness as well. Because they're in a space now where they're trying to do what they were doing before with this new awareness and kind of suppressing it, and then that's coming up. And it's interesting to watch because you can see the material side that maybe they've kept, but then underneath is something else that they've actually suppressed that's coming out in other ways as well. So it's like, what do you want to live with?
Yeah, and I agree with every point of that. I do feel sorry for a lot of people too. Like it's not a case of, I told you, sorry, the neighbour's dog's barking here, you might hear yaps in the background. It's not a case of, you told you so, you wanker, which part of you still feels like you've been treated like I got rabies. And I've even joked as a reaction, how you going, mate? How you been? So I haven't got rabies now, so I'm allowed back into places. And they're like, oh. I try and do it to soften a bit, you know what I mean? But I probably shouldn't do that because it takes it into joke land. When it's not joke, it's a serious thing. And I don't envy, single mums or single dads with kids who have to do it to keep their job or to get their child support or to get their government support. Like, it's just pushing people to the brink and to the edge of the earth to do this stuff. Like, it took away consent, it took away informed consent, it took away free will. It just really peeves me. And, my local rep's Mark Butler, the federal health minister. We go to a coffee across from the road. He's recently just sold his house. And I'm just like, he won't even look at me. He's a port supporter, comes to functions. He won't look at me. And I'm just like, mate, you're not a medical bloke. I get that. You're doing your job because you're in the Labor Party and you do what you have to tell because otherwise you're kicked out of the party. But there's just no human element. It's almost just like, oh, no, it didn't happen. I'm looking at these. We're not far away from election now. Look at the two blokes we've got to pick from. Like, don't worry, I'll be going independent and Jared Rennick's crew and the like. Yeah. And I know Alex Antich, he's a ripping fella, and I think he's trying to turn the wheel. But let's face it, if they're the best we got to turn, who's going to be Prime Minister, God help us.
It's unbelievable. I've never seen the consciousness at this level in an election where, like, I was in Bendigo recently. I looked up the local candidate. So, like, you don't even have any options. Like, usually you got some independents in some seats, but Bendigo's got nothing. It's like Labor, Liberal, Nationals, Greens, and this new party called the Socialist Party, which I think is even more green than the Greens. And they're your options. Yeah. Your options. So, but I think like credit you for doing it too, because I think ultimately that's what like the greater society needs to do, because we always talk about like this system and what it is, but it's just a degree of acquiescence that falls along everywhere, where everyone's got to look after themselves, but eventually you've got to do what is right, you know.
Yeah, it's funny, like it's cost a bomb, like it's cost us over 300 grand in legal fees.
Yeah.
And everyone go, oh, you got it. Yeah, well, I'm a bloke who's been through divorce, earned good money while I was playing sport, been through divorce. Then, we sold our house and we did all right on that. But, for us, it had to be done. And we knew we were fighting in the system, appointed by politicians and governments and all that. And that's still sort of bubbling along. But I look back now and go, what would I change? I'd probably change a few of the investments I've done. But I wouldn't change anything else. I probably would have gone on Afterpay when it went from $9 to $99. That would have been a good one to put the super into for 12 months. But fundamentally, I can lie in bed. I sleep because all I did was look after what I thought was right. And you know what? If I was the first person to get it wrong, and I haven't got this wrong, but I'd be saying, you know what? Yeah, sorry, got it wrong. Didn't make. And there's a lot of people would be in that situation. And I don't envy those people who felt forced, have had reactions. And then the worst thing possible is how Jared Rennick, and I never thought I'd ever say I'd be watching Instagram shorts about what's happening in the Australian Senate. But for him to have to fight for people who've had vax injuries to get compensation from a government who rammed it down our throat, it's utterly disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's painful watching these Senate hearings. He's the best in there, I agree. Especially when he's got what's that guy, that Professor Scarrett, those ones we've got. But I wanted to say, like, obviously, because I know like vaccines in particular has been a gateway of people understanding the world. Looking at the world differently, and then also like looking at yourself differently. And it's different for everyone, isn't it? So some people come in through health, some people come in through, understanding the banking system. Yeah, a lot. I think a lot come through health. A lot come through, like even
the
my
body speaks. Yeah.
And so I guess the question is like, how much have you seen change within yourself in this last like 4 or 5 year period, and like what's your perception or view of the world now? And like,
we've been living a life of 41 years of my life. You know what I mean? Like for me, it was always about playing AFL and having success and being a one club law player, and retired and doing the media because I thought the media was real and truthful and honest. Wow. Didn't quite read that one well. And particularly, I only saw that because of that's why I really think the likes of the technology we use now, whether it's Zoom or podcasting or X, the old Twitter, since Elon's taken over, we're now getting a different perspective on what's available. Like if this happened 30 years ago,
it wouldn't be the same.
You're left with radio, TV, newspaper,
Conversations at the pub.
And that's where you'd probably get some real, Johnny's had an issue or someone's had something. But the actual media was the ones that let us down in this situation, because we weren't getting that truthful side. And on my podcast, I'm going to review, and I think I might have touched on it earlier, maybe before we recorded, there was a nurse outside of Channel 9 who was reporting right at the time. They were reporting all the journos were out the front. So there was a heap of protesters, and these are all the health nurses in South Australia. They went to Channel 7 on a Saturday, then Channel 9 on a Monday or whatever, and then Channel 10, because they didn't feel the truth was being told. But it's funny, all the mainstream media focused on a girl called Denny Van Hagen, who is a AFLW player. She won a couple of premierships with the Crows. She worked in the health space as a nurse or a sister, and she was reluctant to get the vaccine. It now works out in time that she wanted to have a baby, and she's actually had a healthy baby for her and her husband. But the media just went her. You're not going to make the mandates. You're not going to be able to this. You're not going to be able to that. You're going to be able to that. And they just terrorised her. But it's funny, at that time, there was a woman and all the media were there recording. And it was quite literally, as I looked, I was on the first floor of this Pirie Street Channel 9, and straight down there were all the protesters. Right? And it was like, don't go outside, it could be dangerous. I was like, mate, people, their lives, like I didn't go outside, but I was like, calm down. So, but what happens is what they didn't realise is the link, right? So they have a live link on TV. So a cameraman's there recording, it gets shot by satellite straight into the newsroom. So I assume it's happening at 7, it's 9, it's 10, it's whatever. So I'm watching this, and I'm watching this vision, and this sister has actually said, this is dangerous, da-da-da-da. I was like, it's 30 of 38 beds at Flinders Ward, which is the hospital in down south, Flinders Hospital, in the adolescent ward of vax-related injuries. And I'm like, wow. So I went and chatted to my news director, boss Jeremy, and actually said to him, mate, this is an issue. He dismissed it. Oh, that's not credible. And then I went and sat down, and then I went back and said, hang on, you said it's not credible. I said, someone's just said it. We've all seen it. Isn't it worth just like digging into and asking? Because I was a news hound. I was like, well, and as a parent, I got 3 kids. I want to know if I'm going to give my kid this vax, it's going to be safe. He was dismissed. Oh, no, I don't have time. It's unregulated. It's close to deadline. I was like, wow. And that was another penny dropping moment for me. So
where was your faith in media prior to this happening? Because obviously, like, you're working in one of the main media companies in Australia, and then
they're the biggest.
The biggest in Australia, and then, you know, to the stuff of revelations that's coming out now with USAID, which is basically like this CIA front, and they're funding the Washington Post and all these other news organizations. I mean, people know, like, the ones like Press TV is funded by the Iranian state, RTV is funded by, and then you got your ABC, which is funded by the government. But to show that, you know, like, who was the other guy? There was a German guy too. He died about 7 years ago, and he was saying the CIA were directly writing his papers and sending it to him. So, like, what is this freaking media? Like, did you fully believe it when you were in it?
Yeah, I believed it because I was a sport guy. I just want to know whether Port Crows were winning,
isn't it? Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, no, but it is different. But it's even like, I love news. Like, what happened today? Oh God, yeah. Oh, what's happening with interest rates, or, you know, what's property prices? I always found it interesting that even Nine owned paper, Stan, Domain Real Estate, even though they do a property story from Domain. They own Fairfax Radio, which is 3AW, 6PR in Perth, 2GB. All that crew. So they're a massive conglomerate, and those laws changed under Turnbull's watch. So it did change significantly around. Did it coincidentally change around the time before all this happening? Who knows? But I was complete news junkie. You know, I love Twitter more so than Facebook because I get the latest news, sports story. Hey, someone else's, Dale's a big Saints man. Oh, yeah, we're playing against the Saints this weekend. Oh, Max Hutchin's got a hamstring. Oh, that's my bloke I'm playing on. Oh, yeah, I'll have to think about who I might play on this week. Like, so my evolution for all that, and that's why I got into it, because I loved it. But what I've obviously found out since is certainly not anywhere near what it is, which has been disappointing, but it's also, surprising. And it's funny, as I got stood down, a mate of mine who works in media but is wide awake, he sent me a message and goes, "You're stuffed." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, and it was an article that Soros bought into 9 shares when the company was conglomerate, when it joined with Fairfax Media. I was like, wow. And, you know, George Soros' stories are, I think he's banned in multiple countries if you want to dig into that one. But it was like, well, he was a shareholder at 9. I don't know if he still is at the time, but I was like, oh, okay. So then things just started to add up.
He's got his hand in every pie, Soros, doesn't he? Like, like, why don't they should try and hide it through some other people. It's like he funds everything. But Mads, I just saw a fly flying over Warren's head. Now Mads always says that's like some AI interference there.
Is that good or bad?
AI interference? I've never said AI.
What do you say?
Interference of some kind.
Interference of some kind.
Maybe I need a shower.
It was when you started talking about the media, and it actually zoomed up right to the screen.
Yeah.
You see it?
It's a tech fly listening in. Going back to when you obviously everything happened, and then deciding to step into what you're doing now, having a podcast, speaking out. What's your bigger vision, I guess? And who's your audience now? Like, because you spoke into just before, like. And I've been in this space too, where originally, you know, it's a bit of an echo chamber with it's just the people that kind of said no to the jab and stuff like that. But I'm starting to feel and notice a kind of the trickling in and a kind of, you know, there's questioning happening all around now. And I really, because of, I guess, the spaces I'm in, the people I talk to, it's like, how do we transition into this space now. And what does that look like? And yeah, I'd love to hear, I guess, the journey to hear what you kind of see for, you know, what you're doing now, the bigger vision, also who you're speaking to.
Yeah, difficult question to answer. No, but it's difficult because of the context, but then also quite simple. For me, it's my perspective is if I always knew footy, which I did in news, which was this way, and I found out that might not be 100%, what's over here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, you know, people call it conspiracy theorist, or I call it critical thinking. I think, you know, and the other thing too is we used to do post-football games recovery on the beach. I did it because I thought it was the cold. And then other people go, no, you do it because of the grounding and the inflammation. I learned that post-football. Why didn't I know that in football? So for me, when I'm doing this podcast, yeah, there's an element of this, my story. There's an element of hearing, you know, I didn't speak to Pete Evans because he pushes alternative health. I speak to Pete Evans because he was the biggest name in media, could do no wrong. Yeah, he did some stuff that questioned the narrative. The media went for him and he got cancelled and ended all over. And how did he deal with that? I'm interested to hear how he dealt with that, right? I'm also talking about Judd Rennick, who, for me, he was a Liberal Party senator. Grew up, my dad worked on the wharf, so I was Labor. I lived in, you know, Port Adelaide teams, you know, not in the Port Adelaide area, but not far away. It was always Port Adelaide. It was always Heartland, Labor, unions, all that. I then, when footy started thinking more Liberal, because probably taxation-wise it was better for me, to then, now I see what he did. He crossed the floor, or did he cross the floor? He didn't, withheld his vote on a few things, and all of a sudden he got outed and manipulated out of the vote for the next election. He's now an independent. So for me, it's all about this evolution of information. So where does it go to? I've watched Joe Rogan, and I like some of the content. Some, right? I don't like all of it. Am I going to sit there and, you know, I've listened to the UFO start and I go, it's beyond my pay grade. Yep, cool. If you want to believe in that, that's fine. Great. If it's not. Like, and I know that, you know, Dale talks bits about portals and bits and stuff, which has some interest to me because I don't know anything about it. But if you ask me to explain and start writing about it.
Portal hunting in Adelaide.
Well, I know. And this is the thing. And even when I was in Queensland, I was like, oh, that could be what he's talking about. That's good. So I'm open to stuff. I'm open to stuff I don't know about. Okay, talk to me why. I'm not going to, oh, you're an idiot. What do you mean? And they'll go, do you get it? And it might take me 15 times. And my wife's a classic. I just don't get it. Like, this is easy. You should talk about this and synchronicity and something. Like all these different stuff that just starts, I would never have seen before. For me, it was, I talk about it in terms of food. I used to eat healthy, right? But this terminology explains to you where I used to thought with life. It didn't affect me. I'm pie and chips bloke. It's pretty simple. Pie with sauce, all happy. You know what I mean? Whereas now I'm like, you know, I've done fasting now. You know, I've done a full month's fast of juiced. I've dropped weight that I needed to drop. I've had fasts where I've had no food for 2 days and I feel great. And my body feels better and I feel less inflamed. So for me is, okay, if there's some stuff about grounding or there's some fasting and there's some stuff that I don't know about that was perceived as being weird and alternate, then I'm interested to look in this stuff. You know, there's no doubt some of my friends go, oh, he's gone kooky. Yeah, cool. But maybe they're not on this journey too. You know what I mean? But what I will say too is I hope there are a lot of people who, if you're actually feeling this way, then reach out to different people, because the new community I've got, I would never have met you guys. I would never have come across Jacob's stuff on Instagram. Dale. Yeah, like I've seen his stuff. It's like, whoa, that's different. I would never have met Alex Antich or, you know, touch base with Trevor Hendy, you know, the former surf lifesaving superstar who's now done some coaching with me. But he reached out to me and got me on a Zoom meeting like this with 100 of the biggest names in sport who are all against the vax.
Wow.
I won't tell you the names, but it's not hard to work out the industries that they were in. There were AFL players, there were surfers, there were Olympians, there were actors, there were pilots, it was just like, wow. So here I am thinking I'm under attack from the advertiser and Nine sacked me and all that. But then there was this whole new group of people that opens up. So for me, it's all about where does it go? Hey, let's have conversations about anything. The other night, Bianca and I went for a walk. We live in the western suburbs of Adelaide, near the beach. And we're renting, right? So we've got all the kids, and some nights we go, let's just take the dogs for a burn. Sometimes the dogs annoy us, they stay home. So we go for a walk, and I go, look at the sky. And I reckon there was a plane flying over 15 times spraying the sky, and we just had gather round in South Australia. So I filmed it and put it up. Oh, this farmer went to town on me going, oh, you think we're in a drought? I said, yeah, we are. But I'm just asking a question, what's this about? Then someone posts, next minute comes back to me and goes, hey, here's the federal act and law. Oh, okay. So for me, I would never have known what so-called, weather modification was. Now, I'm just now going, oh, this is interesting. I might read about that, or I might get someone to talk about that. I might get someone to talk about other bits and pieces, independent journalists to come on, life coaches. I didn't know what a life coach was. I was like, weak as piss. Who's a life coach? Sort yourself out. That was my old attitude. Whereas now I'm like, okay, there's a place for this. And it doesn't mean you buy it and eat it all up.
Would you say, because I remember when I had my first big awakening, it's like someone literally just goes pop, and there's just everything out here. It's just a new perception of reality, and then there's almost an excitement that comes with it, because all this stuff, because you're re-educating yourself, you're unlearning things, you're trying to decide what's real, and I can see how much I can see that within you. Would that be a good way to describe it? There's actually an excitement about understanding the intricacies of the world and how it works, and kind of how amazing it is, and it opens up all these questions about who are we and what are we doing here, and because they're the big things you're never going to hear on the media, in mainstream media, talking about what is a human being, what are we doing, these aren't normal questions, but that's where it ultimately leads.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right, Dale. And the other thing too is, if it all went to shit tomorrow, what do we got?
Yeah.
Well, I know I've got one son who's a real good fisherman and surfer, so we should be able to get some dinner, right? But strip it all back, you go, well, what do you really need? Yeah. Right? You just need a bit of shelter, you need food, and you need to be able to survive. And I know that we're not in that case, but it does, you realise how much you're caught in that perfect aesthetics world, or privileges or possessions world. And I was as guilty as anyone, not ridiculous, but you like a nice watch, you like to wear the nice clothes, you're not driving a nice car. But we're never quite content in that situation. It's even when I reached out to you, Dale, probably 4 years ago, I can't remember what happened. I just thought, I'm going to text this dude. I like his content. I don't mind. In the end, I picked the phone up and spoke, and you told me you're a Saints fan, and I said commiserations for that. He told me how.
I get a message.
Mads, in 2004, the week before the grand final to go in, we beat Dale's team by a goal, and he said we were robbed. So that didn't start our relationship very well.
I still think. I reckon the St Kilda team of 04 was better than the Saints team of 09. That was
well, they both lost, so it doesn't matter.
But I get it. I get an Instagram thing, and I'm like, that's Warren Tredrea. Because I'm big into football, so obviously I knew who he was, and I'm like, nah, it's not him. And then he's rigged me. I'm like, oh, g'day, Warren. What's happening? Because now I'm kind of on the other end of that, because we've not even had people in our little niche where we're kind of these niche little celebs, are we, Mads?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
but what you guys are doing is good, because there's a lot of people watching, and whether you take that much of it or that much of it, it's like anything. It's like my bit. I've had so many people reach out, and one of the most original stories I got was from social media, and said, thanks so much for standing up. And I was still dealing with my own wounds. It was fresh. I think I've been stood down. So I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything on social media. I couldn't do anything. And all these people going, you got to speak out. You're going to lead. I couldn't, because I was still fighting for my future at my employer, even though I knew that they were going to sack me anyway. And I had this one girl goes, thank you so much. I met my partner in Melbourne. I'm an Adelaide person. I had to be vaxxed. I had nervous breakdown, and I was that stressed. I thought it was going to kill me, but I had to do it, so I wanted to see my partner. And she actually had a huge reaction. And her story was I think Bianca was reading it, and she got teary because she cries pretty quickly. And I was even got almost teary, and I'm sort of a bit of a rock like that emotionally. But it was fuck, if this is what it is, then what job do you need to stay for this shit? You know what I mean? That, and that's the bit for me. But yeah, so I think it's the longest way of answering a question, Madeleine, is for me, it's no discussions banned. It's just, I want to educate. I want to ask questions. And what I took from Pete's interview when I chatted to him on my podcast was, if it resonates with you, that's great. Come on the journey. If it doesn't, dismiss it. Call me what you want. Doesn't worry me. Move on. So for me, I'll still do my role. I still commentate footy for as long as they'll have me in a way. I might grow out of that. I'm on my old footy club's board, which would probably be challenging for some people involved in the AFL system, considering they mandated and was strong on that, following government initiatives. But for me, is I'm going to be true to myself. And admittedly, there are apprehensions sometimes of what I post, and I'm still caught in the old, got to present like the media and do it all perfect and sort of tell people what I want to. No, I've got to start to do the raw stuff. Like I'm doing the interviews in a confined place and it's still produced. But I think as time goes on, it's just going to be me finding my way, doing what I'm doing, and put my family, myself first, and mind the French. If you don't like it, see you later.
Yeah. That's why I think it's good for people in your position, because you come from mainstream media. You've got a community of people that would know you from football, and then there's other people that are coming from the side of they're questioning things that are happening in society and to themselves. So it's a bit of, whereas I don't know what our mix is, Mads.
What do you mean? Our audience?
Yeah, we're probably more of a bubble. That's what I mean. You've probably got more possibility to expand into, should I call it the mainstream? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to communicate with more people outside of
more people.
Yeah, but that's only, let's face it, the way media works nowadays, particularly independent media and podcasts. That's one cross interview like we're doing now, and if I get you guys on my forum, it's easy to open up, and it's easy to explode, and it's easy to break down those barriers. And this is the bit that I always check myself, and I try not to judge anyone and go, well, everyone had their own decisions. But I know of many people in professional sporting organisations who, various codes were mandated and may have got it put into an orange, not an arm, mate, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Wasn't Djokovic's manager asked about that? Because he was saying, there were others on the tour that didn't take it as well, but they just, they got people to write it off.
I think I heard Pat Cash talk about how he was singled out, and he certainly wasn't the only one in the top 10 who hadn't been mandated vaccinated.
But Djokovic wanted to make that stance. He wanted it to know, because it wasn't just about him. He wanted to set the example that he stood for something.
Yeah, and how he's been ridiculed. Jeez, he just said no, didn't he?
I love the Serbs, man. Serbs don't put up with no shit.
Yeah, and that's a lesson, and I think also too, that's a lesson that we can learn from a Western society, particularly Australia. We sit there and just chill. Oh, life, mate. She'll be right, mate. She's all good. You know what I mean? Yet we wouldn't know if someone nicked our own wallet out of our pocket. So they've seen years of Eastern Bloc stuff. I don't know. I'm no specialist what's happening with Russia or Ukraine or Israel or whatever, but I'm sort of gathering whatever we know from a Western side of the media probably not is the case. And if Putin's a bad man, which he's perceived as, and I've only ever known him to, do we actually believe that narrative or not? I don't know. You know what I mean? People just go, yeah, he is. He does this. We went there. We don't know. We're relying on a news source to give us that information. So I think there's a huge amount of growth to say we don't know everything. We've got to be open to all sorts of conversations, and wherever it heads, that's okay. To always can say that's not for me.
Aussies are different though. That we've been very lucky for 100 years with our own affluence and being able to have it all. But I mean, Australia looks on the cusp of absolute financial degradation and ruin at the moment. It's unbelievable. People don't think that Australia could turn into Venezuela, but it's at the current rate that we're going with what the government's doing, it's unbelievable what's happening. It's again, that's just about to burst.
Yeah, well, look at the UK. They probably look like they're about 10 metres in front of us.
Yeah, I can't see another country in a worse position in the West than us, at least for short-term pain. Don't you reckon, Mads?
Yeah.
And well, there's so much social conditioning here. Like you were just speaking to it before, Warren. We don't really have the awareness. We are in such a she'll be right bubble that anything outside of that is not even comprehensible. So when it hits, it's people even don't even believe that it's happening type thing until it's happening, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I think even, the younger generations and what they're kind of have been brought into through all of this as well is going to be really interesting when it all plays out, because they also have connection in a way to a lot of this stuff that we're coming into contact and questioning now years before us. Like, things like TikTok, the amount of stuff you can like see on there is like unbelievable, and the different perspectives from different countries that we never had. So it'll be, I don't know, like it'll be interesting to see what comes of that too. I don't think it's all bad. I think we'll always have a choice.
No, I don't either. I think it's like there's definitely some short-term pain. Just the trajectory without something interloping, it looks really bad on the surface.
Yeah. I agree. And you look at the financial side. I'm certainly not a financial person, but I've read a lot into the value of a dollar, and everyone goes, "Oh, your house has done. I've made so much money." Well, I liken it, and it's a pretty simple case of when my dad used to coach the under-19s at Port Adelaide in the SANFL, South Australian Footy League. I was a little tacker running up and down the grandstand all day, kicking the footy with my brother. And I only really checked the score when someone would scream and, "Hey, we've got to go," or at the end of the game, "Yeah, we won." But Mum used to give us $2. $2 bought me a can of Coke or a can of Twist or a can of Tab, right? And a pie or a pasty. Yeah, they're $1 each, right? A sausage roll was 80 cents. If you wanted mixed lollies or $1, you get a heap. If you go to the hot chips, go to the fish and chip shop, you'd get $30 worth of hot chips, the equivalent nowadays. Yeah. So everyone says, "Oh yeah, property prices have risen." No, it's just the devaluation of the dollar. And I learned that pretty well in the last 5 years. Before that, I actually had no interest. I was earning good money and, oh yeah, prices went up. And if not, yeah, well, I'll pay this tax. You go through that entire process. And you talk about that information about the young kids. We had a classic example dropping the kids, Bianca and I, at school a couple of years ago. We go, "Oh, this Ukraine war," and the kids were like for 3 or 4 days, "Oh yeah, Ukraine war, whatever. There's no bloody war," right?
Oh, really?
They got out of the car into the car one afternoon. About a few days later, a week later, "Oh my God, have you seen the war? The war's going crazy. You weren't wrong," because they'd seen it on TikTok about 3 or 4 days later.
Gotcha.
So they do get a form of that information.
It's very like it's really based off your algorithm, but it is interesting. It's like I've actually recently gone on it, which I was very hesitant, but I've noticed in Instagram, you're in a reel, and Facebook, you're in like I don't know, it's sort of like you're in a sort of echo chamber.
Yeah.
And then TikTok, it's based off interest. So you can put in anything, and I don't know, it's almost like going overseas and seeing what's happening over there. And it's really interesting. There's a dark side to it, but
I think it's an eclectic mix. Like I've spoken before how every time there's a consciousness raised, there's a new new technology introduced.
Yeah.
And like TikTok was 2020 and it just
TikTok is something. Yeah.
So good. But
one thing I'll quickly touch on that though as well is even on X, on Twitter, you always have your following list, who you follow.
Yeah.
And I don't follow some people because it's a little bit, and I'll watch it just for entertainment or view, but everyone go, "Oh, look at him, he's following that." So I don't follow some people, but my For You page is so out there. That's the algorithm of all the different stuff you can see, from currency revaluations to, fiat, the money, and all, the health stuff. And the same sort of thing is actually now happening on X as well.
I haven't used that much at all. I should go back on.
You can see when they've tweaked them. Like this was like the glory days of YouTube, Warren, like 05, 06. You'd find the most amazing stuff. It was after Christchurch massacre where they flipped it. It was like the day after. Do you remember that one? Remember the one?
Yeah. I was in the newsroom when that happened. I remember going, wow.
Yeah.
And then laws were flipped. And only in hindsight now I realise, what's going on here? Because I think Jacinda Ardern was in charge, and I thought she was a really strong leader back then. She was strong, all right. She was strong on doing what Dan Andrews did in Victoria, but she banned the vision of Facebook, the redistributor station of the vision, it was like, oh, wow, this is unusual at the time. And now you sit back and go, oh, hang on, that's very different. Why would have done that? But you were awake, but you were consciously asleep, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't really living in that moment. You're, oh, that's shocking. God, that's a shocking event. How'd that happen? And
I just
makes you
remember
question a lot.
we used to look up, obviously, like we'd look up all different attacks and stuff like that. And I remember the next day, and you entered it into YouTube, and there was nothing. But because before that, it was all like,
Oh, I remember.
it was all like alternative media and independent journalists you'd find on YouTube. And then the next day, you typed in Christchurch, and it was just Al Jazeera, Channel 9. Like you couldn't get anything but the mainstream, and they flicked it that day. So, but do you know what I was going to say too with the devaluation of the currency? Because obviously, I've been checking gold prices now, and I think gold's 5,200 now. It's just continually rising. But the way they say with gold is if you wanted to buy a suit in the 1800s, it'd cost you like 2 ounces of gold or whatever, right, for a suit. And today, it's still 2 ounces of gold for a suit. It's like, so the gold never changes value. And that's why it's a very good indicator of the devaluation of the currency. So if you look at where the trajectory that it's going now, and that in Australia, there seems to be no other option from the government other than to print more money at the moment. Like I think we're $1 trillion debt now, which in comparable to like the US economy and their GDP, they're 34 trillion. We're in as bad or worse position with the 1 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
I think Victoria is paying 35 million interest payments a day. Like it's insane. But they're building a statue of Dan Andrews.
Oh my God.
Have you seen what some guy wrote in? I think it was
Is that a joke?
No, yeah, they're building.
No, it's serious.
But this politician said it's not a good idea because they're going to have to pay more because fixing it up from the vandalism.
But they re-elected him.
What do you mean?
He got in again.
Oh yeah, he got re-elected.
Oh my God.
And then he walked off into the sunset.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Yeah, that's the bit that. Yeah, I've read that 90% of the purchasing price from 70s or years gone by when we went off the gold standard is effectively been evaporated. And that's the worry. And even people who are in the financial markets who are now seeing the risk associated with this. And this is what some people are saying. It's interesting to see what Trump's doing over there. And I like some of his policy. I don't know the bloke, but I like the fact that he's probably cleaned up some corruption and RFK is going to make people healthy. I think that's a good thing, surely. But we're in a situation now where you look at what he's doing. They're saying he's effectively trying to tank the markets so he can bring the interest rate down so he can make it more affordable for America in the short term before he tries to make a fix. I get that. I understand that. But that's not being portrayed anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
What they sack? Was it 20-something thousand IRS agents? But I think Biden put 40,000 on or something, didn't he?
Yeah. It's baffling. He's trying to shut the borders. He's trying to do, but we look at what we're doing similar. We've got open borders. Immigration's help keep. And I'm no economist, but I've read enough to suggest that by keeping the borders open, keeps jobs higher. So many people underemployed. I'm guilty of that. Don't have enough work. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people in this world are employed, but it's the underemployment through the roof.
What's it like in Adelaide? Because I've been to Melbourne, I've been to Sydney, I've been to Brisbane the last few years, but I haven't been to Adelaide. Like Melbourne, you can notice the levels of immigration just like every time I go there. It's really, it's incredible to see. Like, it probably wouldn't be the same in Adelaide, would it?
Doesn't feel that way. But the cost of living's certainly hurting. Bianca and I went for a walk the other night. It was along the beach, and a dude was in the sand dunes with his whole tent set up. To someone, homelessness is there. People see in the city all the time. It's certainly not an easy space for people. And the gap, I think the gap's been bigger between anyone now. You've got people earning big bucks at the top and a lot of people with, we've got issues here in South Australia of not enough housing. Every time they do a redevelopment in a big housing situation, then that's effectively farmland north and south of the town, the city, which is being sold off and not replaced for food. They're trying to get it affordable. People who are trying to do these developments are making good money and good on them because that's their job. But then the infrastructure is now 10 years behind, so they have the water systems or sewage to do it. I think it's the case of everywhere. And, Jared Rennick put it perfectly on the podcast in my first episode. He said, well, I saw the red flags. He goes, I believe that you need to isolate people for health. He goes, but fundamentally, if you turn off the economy and lock people in their houses and then open the printing press to hand out money and JobKeeper and do all these things, you're going to have
There's a flow.
there's going to be a flow on. And we talk what happened with the housing boom crash in America, which effectively, I'm told, and I don't know, but I read that it was the insurance boom crash off that, not boom. They reckon where we're at now, you look at the debt levels compared to where we were there, we're double that.
Mhm.
So we sit on the edge.
Well, this is what I heard with like the immigration thing too, because I can't remember who was saying, but they said that they've reached maximum household debt in Australia for the average person, right? So if you're just a middle income, household debt's at its absolute max, means you're not borrowing no more money to get a boat or a car or whatever it might be. So the banks need to keep lending to keep fake money continually circulating, and the insurance companies need to too. So the only way you can do it is you got to import more customers for more debt, and it's not going to end well. And they know it's a band-aid solution, but it's keeping it at bay for a little bit longer. So
Yeah, it's just their time in office. They do one thing that looks good on surface level to people that aren't diving deeper into it, and then there's a flow-on effect. Kind of catch.
Like, imagine that this is the example that I use when I talk to people going, okay, imagine if both parents are working, right? That's a lot changed from when I was a kid. Dad worked, mum was at home. Dad had a good job, probably around the 6-figure mark, but just on. Imagine now you'd need 2 family incomes of 100,000, right? If you talk about your mortgage repayment, say you got $1 million home, which is probably around the average of South Australia. On that interest alone, if it's 5%, it's 50 grand a year. So you got to earn effectively 100 grand a year to pay off 50 grand a year. There's one salary gone. Kids have got childcare. Then if you want to try and put them in a private school, or you've got sport or dance or something, and then you might want to have a holiday. Then you go, oh, you've got a couple of cars because you need one car, at least 2 cars potentially to run around. 200 grand now. 200 grand when I was growing up as a kid, it was like, hang on, someone's won the lotto.
yeah,
Now it's like it's this not. Don't mean it quite literally the breadline, but it's like people who are earning 2 salaries of 100 grand are probably, they're certainly not wealthy. You know, it's probably still their challenges to get by from their choices the way they want to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then it's entrapment again.
Yeah.
far out. Well, that's like so. Albo was talking about now. They're like, oh, they're lowering it to I don't know how they're doing it, regulating, but 5%. You need 5% for a home loan. Well, what's 5% of $1 million? The average house is $1 million. So what's 5%?
50 grand.
50 grand. You're going to make a deposit and loan. You're going to lend 950. Like that person, no one do that. Do not.
Yeah,
do
but what about the other one? They're now combining too, Dale. They're going, okay, well, if you only got 50 grand, go into partnership with the government to get a house.
Have you heard that one, Matt?
I was just waiting for it to be rolled out, and here it is.
Oh, you hadn't heard of it?
No, I hadn't, but I knew it was coming. That's so interesting. Yeah.
It's just like anyone's bank loan. People don't realise that if, for example, we had a housing crash, right? Whereas I think in the 2008 crisis, the area that sort of I was looking, I've always sort of lived in Adelaide, went down by about 8%, right? Mm. Generally, banks can at any stage call in that 8% and go, you know, that loan you had before, it was $1 million. We need to take 8% off you and you need to pay that back instantly. What happens if that's 10% or 20%? Mm. The whole system crashes. And these deals that you're doing with the government, when has the government ever worked in our best interests?
Yeah. It's like a mass theft that they've set up.
I was waiting for that to happen. I can't believe it's already here.
Well, do you know what David Icke used to always say for years? He's like, you know, they lower rates, and it's like this fishing line out, and then it's like up the rates, fishing line in, and then what you end up doing is you've taken all their money, you've taken something of real wealth, not digital numbers on the screen. You've taken property, land, all these things, and it's just it's a fishing expedition. But like, I don't know who. Now they've made this announcement of 5% for a fucking home loan of $1 million. Like you'd be an absolute moron if you did that.
Well, it's like funny. I spoke to Corey White, who's a comedian and criminal lawyer over in Perth, and got locked out in COVID. Couldn't practice because they mandated in the courts, not in South Australia, and certainly not federally. But in Perth they did. So he went on the comedy circuit and he's right-leaning comedy. So he was at the Adelaide Fringe. We went to see him a couple of years ago. He was on the fringe of the fringe, he said. He was in the back corner, no advertising. He was just finished telling me that the Labor government got over in Perth. I think it's Cook, is it? The Premier over there. But they outsourced the voting to an overseas company.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I never heard that. To sing it, the Singaporean private company, right?
Yeah. So they were the ones effectively managing the polling booth. So people couldn't vote in certain polling booths, got moved to other ones, and it got outsourced.
Have you heard this one, Matt? Unbelievable.
WA. Oh my God. It's just
and wasn't the election, wasn't a real fine margin?
No, it was. They won majority seat by a long way. I know Basil Zemplis, the old commentator from Seven and presenter over there, he's now the head of the Liberals. But if you look at the seat margin, I think Labor smashed it. But I think they only won by close margins, if that makes sense. So in terms of the seat majority, they look like they've got it dominated, but a lot of them were within the striking distance because everyone's decided to go independence. And this is where, with the pending election ahead, I still don't think Aussies know how to vote. I know I'll be grabbing who I like, whether it's Rennick or whoever, to go, who am I going to vote? Who's going to do my preferences? Because no one understands preferences. Because someone said to me the other day, One Nation's just given their preferences somehow to Labor. And I'm like, if that's true, that's just delusional.
There's a lot of conversation about that at the moment because Abby, is it Chatfield?
Yeah.
She's been doing a lot of walking people through and education in this space. And there's been conversations about influencers and people that have a voice and I guess what that looks like for Australian politics now. And also when it comes to sponsorship and what sort of things are kind of put in place, because she's not essentially being there's no sponsor, there's no kind of money under the table as far as we know. But it's really interesting because she's probably I would say someone that's probably the most vocal in that kind of arena that she's in. And she's obviously a certain way and has a certain opinion about things. And Dale obviously speaks about it a little bit.
Oh, he loves her. His favourite.
But it is.
Madeline likes her. Matt's just like.
No, I don't. It's not that okay, look, I can appreciate the arrogance and the righteousness because I sometimes get into that kind of space. But obviously everything that comes out of her mouth is very questionable.
Yeah, I got a mate who argues with her online. Yeah, he knows that the way she thinks, and she's more left-leaning, I think. And a mate of mine just wants to go way right just to pick a fight. And I said, mate, what are you wasting your time for? But I don't know. Called me the skeptic, but it wasn't so long ago that Pink was telling people to get vaxxed and Travis Kelce was telling people to do it. And, we touched on Adam Goods before. We touched on how Andrew Bogut said no. Maybe the skeptic in me goes, well, are the next influencers the one where the politicians are going to turn to educate the young audience who really doesn't give a shit? Right.
Well, that's what they did.
Well, that's what happened in US.
Oh, so that's what I was going to
say.
Yeah. It was Democrats, wasn't it? Democrats Central, Kim Kardashian. They even had Beyonce rock up and everyone thought they were getting a free concert, didn't they? And they got, what's her face?
And it was
like 10 mil.
Yeah.
But the Abby Chatfield one, it's literally identical because Kamala went on a podcast because Trump's changed the whole thing.
Yeah,
he went on Rogan and PBT and the rest of them. And because this is what they're saying now, you can't just go on and do the debate online. Apparently we had a federal debate the other day. I didn't fucking watch it. I don't care.
Yeah, I saw it. It was horrific.
But the podcasts are different because you got a long form. You get to actually see who the person is. And anyway, so Kamala did one, Call Her Daddy, and it's basically like a lefty, like Abby Chatfield. It's like a sect. It's
really?
I
thought she was denying long form podcasts. I thought that was...
she did this one. This one. And they paid the podcast 20 mil or something. But anyway, and then Abby interviews Albo. It was almost identical. Okay. They talk about the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard Rogan invited Kamala on.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
And she said, no, I'll do it via link. He goes, no, we do 3 hours and it's 3 hours here. And she didn't take up the offer.
Yeah, that's right.
That would have been good viewing if she did.
I think there's a reason why she didn't do it.
I don't know if the word good viewing aligns there, but maybe.
Yeah.
For comedy reasons. Yeah, no, interesting space. It has changed a lot. And I've actually been listening to, what is it? What are they called? The Daily Oz. Have you heard of it?
Was that the one you sent me?
No.
The Bogan podcast. That was good. I actually listened to it.
Okay, maybe they are bogans. No, that's the wiser but older but not wiser podcast. They're great. They bring me back. They take me back to my country ball days. It's really lovely. No, it's called the Daily Oz, and they're just two women, and they're trying to stay quite neutral. You can tell that they're left leaning, but they actually asked for a debate, for their podcast. But yeah, it didn't go ahead. Yeah.
I was like, as in like
there's definitely so I think they got Albo on, and they got the treasurer on, the opposition. What's his name? Anyway, and yeah, they got denied, but it's definitely about, like, a lot of younger people now are looking to that space. They're not watching TV, they're not going to these kind of spaces, and that's so essentially the influencers that are speaking about it are the ones educating the next generation of voters. And you can see how, if there's only one side that's being shared, which at the moment is the case, how it's going to lean one way or the other.
I think consumption's massive, as you touch on, and you talked about it before with TikTok. TikTok is now how kids get news. Yeah, we've got kids in this house, between Bianca and I, we've got 17, 2 16s and 2 14s. None of them watch mainstream TV, free to air. The only time our TV gets utilised is either a footy game on Channel 7, right, or a Foxtel for sport.
Yeah.
They all have their own devices. I've got one son who's massive into surf life saving and surfing and, catching sharks from the beach. This is what he does. Catches sharks. He in Adelaide, he was on 7 News the other week because he was fishing down at Madeleine's, which is a nude beach, right? Nice. His mate's got a house down there, so he's 16. His mate's 16. They look around while they're fishing at midnight, and this car has flown off the cliff. So they've had to pull these people from a wreckage. He's a kid who just watches YouTube fishing, how to tie stuff, how to do all this, how to learn stuff. And as we now, you can use ChatGPT to write yourself an email or soften an email or, write a letter, those types of things to make it easier. Hey, give me a marketing plan. Yeah. The kids are going to be so advanced doing that sort of stuff, but in terms of the writing and all that, but how they consume their media is totally different. It's TikTok for news. It's Snapchat for communication with your friends. And if you don't open your Snapchat within 10 minutes, people think you're dead. And then you got YouTube for videos, and then you got live sport. So as you talk about, the next wave of the battle is controlling the device. And that's why I look back and see these rules that they're trying to get through, the censorship rules and all this. Some of it you go, it's got some merit. But I just wonder the dark side around the control on that, because that's the biggest challenge now facing everyone moving forward. I think let's face it, we saw it in COVID. The communication was locked down. Anything that was dispersed around, it was deemed inappropriate or misinformation and disinformation. And 90% of those things have been proven correct. Even to a stage, Joe Rogan did an interview, and I'm not sure the lady's name, who was actually a long-time doctor and specialist in vaccines. She told her story, how she stepped away from what she saw from stuff. And this is where the long-form info and the alternative info and podcasting info is now actually educating people more than we've ever been before. And that is, let's face it, it's risky for governments.
Yeah, because we were talking about we need to reach out more to the younger generation. What's our audience, Dale? It's 35 to...
Yeah, analytics is, probably 35 would be
we need
younger and 60.
Yeah, the youngins,
and that'd be a challenge because
totally.
Right now that they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like put it, and that's the same for mine. Mine's more men skewed than women. It's more that 30 to 60 type of people who are actually really concerned. Because I look at it now going for families. Imagine if you're a young family now starting out, trying to find your way. You know what I mean? Yeah,
What about your
daunting.
health over time too? Because you're veggie, aren't you? Or kind of.
It says
I
the
only know
steak
this
sandwich
because
I ate for
Warren
lunch
came
today.
over. Hey, Warren comes over and Mum went and bought like a shitload of like meat. She was going to make like these Italian meatball things, and then I find out he's veg.
Is your mum still off the eggs, or is she back on eggs?
Oh, she doesn't like eggs, but anyway, tell us. Finish your
Mine's
diet.
it's changed a bit, and it's changed mostly because my wife's massive into fasting and vegetarian stuff. And to be honest, if you cook vegetarian food, you don't miss much. I like a steak every now and then, and I said I had a steak sandwich today, but my biggest change has really been alcohol. I barely touched any grog for over 2 years. I reckon I've maybe had 2 glasses, and when I've had it, I've had a glass, and I wake up the next day like, I feel just rotten, whether that's the preservatives or not. I was at the height of breakfast radio and feeling terrible. I was 4, 5 coffees, 6 coffees a day. I reckon I've had, since we travelled in September last year to now, says Dale, next his 5th. And I'm not really had any coffee. When I say I haven't had any, I've probably maybe had 20 coffees since September. I'd do that in the first 4 days of the week. So, so I've changed a fair bit on that. Eat more vegetarian. And the other thing too, by doing a bit of fasting, you actually realise I just eat for boredom or eat for a distraction. So I've learnt to sort of be better at that. To a stage that, detoxing, enemas, all different stuff I'd never even look at for health base, for cleaning and detoxing your system, going to naturopaths with some herbs to clean and detox your system. I'm doing stuff that I've never tried before, and I probably, whilst I'm not as healthy as, I can't say I'm the healthiest I've ever been because I play professional sport for a living, but I think from a toxin point of view, I've probably been as good as I've ever been because you're not, you used to drink sport drinks because that's what we were told, but then you realise the crap that's in them. You know what I mean? Like filtration on your water systems. We've done that. So we're sort of glass half full in terms of the stuff we're trying to do, but empty in terms of the stuff that, hey, what else is out there?
Yeah.
You have to get on Madeleine's dirt. But I was just thinking, like
no, I've tried it. I've tried it.
Have you?
Yeah, I think Bianca bought some. I reckon we had. Yeah. But I've tried it, and I actually like the taste of it. It's a bit weird, eh?
Yeah,
but I like
it's
that
good.
taste of the weird dirt.
Yeah, people like, it's bacon water. And I'm like, well, I love it. I have it with sparkling water and lime every night. That's my beer now.
You want a glass of dirt, hun? You want a glass of dirt?
Madeleine's goal is to make
beer.
like a mineral beer. She wants to make like a good, healthy mineral beer.
Well, we've reached out to someone where you can get copper extract.
Oh.
Yeah. We know this dude is Wolfie, if he's listening. He's on social media. He's a bloody ripper. But yeah, I don't know how.
Copper.
Yeah, so like so I've got a copper bracelet I wear. Yeah, so everything, the houses were full of copper and it was help mineralize water and do all those sorts of things. Now we use plastic piping and rubber.
That's right.
Yeah, it keeps it alive. I don't even know water was either alive or dead, or all the minerals. And I was like, so then you get into that space. I certainly don't know it, so I'm not going to argue if anyone wants to come at me about. Yeah, cool. So I'm just learning, but yeah, there's edible minerals and edible metals that are actually healthy for you and detox, and even the latest one I've read is around copper. So it's like a liquid copper in terms of what it helps cleanse your body and detoxes your blood and all sorts of stuff. So.
Yeah, well, iron's it depends on copper to actually be absorbed.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that think they're iron deficient are actually it's hard to be iron deficient in our Western diet. It's just that their body's not taking in the iron, and you need copper for that, and magnesium technically. But that's in the dirt too. There you go.
Yeah.
I've seen those copper.
Dale doesn't have those
Yeah,
problems with the iron issues, do you, Dale?
Why's that?
You're always pumping iron, mate.
Mate,
Got your top off, walking around.
Hey, you played years of professional sport, and now I am the athlete. It just took me till 40.
I am the athlete.
I
But
noticed that when I caught up with you limping with that crook leg.
hey, but I knew a guy, and he used to. I think it's illegal. He was importing red mercury,
Yeah,
um,
wow.
and he actually used to wear it in a little pendant around him. And as apparently they say it's like heavily toxic, but he's like induced it as well. So I don't know anything about it, but
What for? Like what was
I don't know.
that's really interesting. And he wore
Yes.
it. Some
He wore it.
esoteric thing, surely. That's
Yeah,
really
I don't know.
Yeah, because it's funny, like this copper bracelet I've got, I've had multiple people ask me. I got recommended by a guy we know who was linked to Don Tolman, the health expert overseas.
yeah.
So when I know someone that's very close to him. And it's American Indians woven copper bracelets.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah. So and I leave it and shower in it, sleep, everything. You wear it. In terms of inflammation and aches, I feel better after, my body's not in a superb, it's not a bad state, but I got no cartilages in knees and had 11 operations and all those sorts of things. But so I think that's the piece that's a great unknown, which is okay to, everyone talks about the vax stuff that I went through, but I think that the silver lining is all this other stuff, all the other technologies that you think can help, and frequency stuff and all this stuff is like, wow, electricity.
Yeah, the learning about it is it's all because you're obviously you've been cracked open to like new information, and you're wanting to take self responsibility and even like experiment a bit with yourself and your own body and see what works.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing too. Like I've never been one to be on drugs. But then you read and you hear stuff about the benefits of marijuana and health and all that stuff. So I'm not like I'm just rushing to go do anything like that. But
Get you on the nicotine.
yeah, well, that's the other thing I read too. That didn't nicotine cancel out COVID receptors and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, all the Dr. Otis information, super interesting.
Yeah, like I got ivermectin pretty quick, thinking, oh no, I'm going to get struck down. I'm going to be so crook. Didn't use it, but you know what I mean. Like I think there's a lot of stuff around that we don't know, and there's a lot of stuff that's suppressed for a reason. And for me, a lot of all this stuff has just come back to dollars and cents. It's all money and control, which is frustratingly. But there's always the other thing I'm learning too. You can get really stressed and frazzled, and I was really worried about being sacked and what that would look like. Our life goes on.
Yeah,
we're doing okay. You know what I mean? Like, we've got challenges like everyone else financially, and we could earn more money, and that would make things a lot more comfortable. But I think fundamentally, if you do what's heart-centered or what's in your gut feel and what you know is right from the information you got, then you're going to survive.
Yeah. Well, I think
just follow the nudge.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I said it at the start, but it was awesome to see yourself and a few other public figures at that time, because we were just like, I remember just typing, going, we need someone from like inside, or someone that's got some sort of following to kind of make a stand. So like that definitely is not undervalued what you did at that time too, and it's definitely appreciated by a lot of us, because it wouldn't have been easy.
No, it wasn't difficult, but it was difficult in a way. But the other bit was it was a simple decision with huge consequences. That's probably the best way to describe it. For me, it didn't fit me. I wasn't comfortable doing it, and then obviously everything fell in around that, and it happened for a reason. This is the other bit too. Then if you also look at the other agendas that have been rolled out, whether you call them agendas or plans, or we saw the voice stuff happen. The real story from what I read has never been revealed on that. Constitutional land-based stuff that a lot of people don't even understand. Same sponsors who rolled out the vax. Anyone who was on the government funding teat then had to come in and follow and support. It was when you take yourself out of the system, it was pretty easy to see, hang on, everyone, I think what I'm looking at from afar without being too close to it is that anyone that Trump is pushing out into the light, it's happening for a reason. And I think also too, COVID showed that, the voice vote, yes vote showed that. And fundamentally, you're seeing people play their roles, and you're working out who's authentic and not very quickly just from actions, not words.
I looked at The Voice was kind of like our Brexit, because it was just a similar thing. They were given a referendum, a yes or no, and it was the same with Brexit. The whole every part of the establishment and corporate media and everything else was Remain, and the people said no. So it shows completely how out of touch they are, and who knows what the real results are.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we wind up, Mads? I want to know what's Bianca cooking tonight.
No idea.
Are you the cook?
No, I don't know. I was just worried that she's going to come storming out of that door and go, "Who are you talking to? What's going on?"
Well, we're going to do a part 2 with
Oh
Bianca,
no!
with Bianca.
Yeah, get your lawyer. You're going to have to write. You're going to your waiver at the bottom.
Oh
Disclaimer.
no, bring it on.
I said, Matt, you'd get along well with Bianca. You're both a bit fun. What's Bianca's star sign?
No, she's a Capricorn like I am. We're
Oh,
6 days
she's the
apart.
same. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So what were you saying before? What number am I and what's my year? I don't understand
Well,
any
actually,
of that stuff.
I looked up
Oh
your
yeah,
birthday.
Chinese astrology or whatever.
Yeah, so Chinese astrology, you're a whore.
So I'm 24th of December.
Yeah, so Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So yeah, I looked up your astrology. Oh, so yeah, Chinese astrology, and so 2020 is your enemy year. And I explained this on another video. The enemy, it's basically like the Jupiter 12-year cycle. So it just shows your chance of like luck and abundance is at its furthest distance away. So people could perceive that as it being a tough year. So yeah, that was your 2020. But the next horse year is 2026, which is next year. So next year's going to be a big year for you. So I'd say good year to build up the podcast this year, and it'll probably do well next year. But then, yeah, you're a Capricorn, but you're actually, I looked up your life path number. You're the same as me, 34/7.
So what's that mean?
Big up. It means we're the best. Big up, 34/7. No, you're supposed to be. Well, it goes back to what you said before when you said if something doesn't smell right. And it was seven is like intellect and intuition. So part of it anyway, yeah. So
And this is what I'm going to hear in a couple of weeks' time, or what? When you're both in town?
No. Well, no, I mean, Rachel's going to be good. Yeah, so anyone listening that wants to come to Adelaide on 25th of May, yeah, we're going on like a ley line tour. So I don't know, a lot of people would have done her course and stuff online. So they'd see some of these photos that she shared. But Warren, it's pretty cool if you come. It's because she's going to show like how you can actually spot these things. And there's like what the Aboriginals called the song lines. So it gives you you're able to put the unseen into something that is actually physical, because you can see these things. And she teaches you how to spot them. So then we're actually going to go out and have a look.
Have you heard of the divining rods, Warren? Like how they used to find water?
No.
So back in the day, my granddad used to do it. So on the farms to find the bores and stuff like that, they'd use these divining rods. And when you'd walk across pretty much like an underwater channel or like river system, it would cross over. And so then they'd know where to put the bores. So I think there's a link between that. And then you hear stuff like the meridian lines, ley lines, some call it dragon lines. And I think it's called also like bioenergy lines or what are they called? No, geomagnetic.
They call them fairy lines in Ireland. But Rachel said the same thing. You can use them to spot the lays.
Yeah. So it's like it actually used to be a full thing. Like that was just normal. Like granddad wasn't seen as like a woo-woo witch. Like that was actually just a normal.
How everyone did it.
Yeah, like it was just how you found water. Like that was one of those things.
Oh.
But there's documentaries on how people, if they sleep on them, how people have contracted all these different diseases, or they've healed diseases, or they've got there's a whole thing on it, but they're called different things. So Rachel calls them ley lines, but then everywhere is different. They call
Well, it's funny. Funny is not the word, but it's unusual because I've heard people talk about ley lines, and I've talked to people about forts. A lot of the forts. The war forts, and not far from us there's a place called Fort Glanville, where it's an old fort and it's got old cannons, and then there's another one, Fort Largs, which is past Largs Bay in South Australia, in the western suburbs, both in the sort of Port Adelaide area, and that used to be where the police academy does their training for South Australia. But there's an old fort with old guns there, And then people have also talked about that stuff. So that sort of stuff really interests me because they say it could be an energy hub. I don't know. It's beyond my pay grade, but alternative thinking, hey, just see what comes of it and what resonates.
Yeah. Well, Rachel will give a bit of the back history, and she quotes a guy's book quite a lot, but he said this is how they built all the Roman roads and stuff thousands of years ago. So, and that's like a lot of the new information that's coming out. It's just all old stuff that's just come back,
Yeah, we've got new jargon now, new, you know what I mean? And some in really, very spiritual circles, it's one thing. And then in our circles, it's another thing, it's just different language, really. Speaking about the same thing. Yeah.
So that'll be cool. But you got any more questions, Mads?
Well, we'd love to do a part 2 with you, Warren. That'd be great. With your
gosh. You get my wife in, mate. She just go. You could do it alone. There you go. Keep me out of it. My old media. Don't say that. This. You mean that? You mean this? No, she's a classic. She'll start. Dale knows her. She'll start talking about something and she'll go, "Oh, the pedophile." No, that's not that. That's that person. That's not that person. So she does get a bit mixed. She's got too many things going on.
This is why I think you'd like her, Mads, because she just kind of says what she thinks, which is
a spade's a bloody shovel, if you know what I mean. So you'll definitely get her on. But happy to chat anytime. But if anyone's keen to shoot over to my podcast, bit different content.
Can you give us
it's the Ballsy Show. Ballsy Show. It's about it's effectively having conversations on topics that not the mainstream or most people are comfortable with. So COVID's been part of it. Went on to talk about weeks. Talk about Trevor Hendy's coming up. He's recorded. He talks about his life in this, from the old surf lifesaving days in Baywatch and meeting Madonna and Michael Jackson to now how he's doing life coaching and spending a lot of time traveling around Australia in the middle of nowhere, with his sort of mentoring programs and does rescues. So, and got an interesting one coming up too, Rebecca Barnett, who's an independent media journo, and we get into the suppression of the information over the next couple of weeks. So got all sorts of different people lined up, and for anyone out there, the Ballsy Show podcast. On all podcast forums, also on YouTube and my socials at Warren Tredrea on Instagram and Twitter and all that. You can sort of connect through that if you're interested. If not, as Pete Evans will say, don't worry about it then if you don't care. Simple.
Well, we'll share a link, hey, Dale, to it so people can get
I'll leave the links under here. We are on Spotify and that's it. But until I can work it out. Go check out Warren's podcast. I've really enjoyed the first few, particularly the last one. I thought it was fantastic.
How'd your dad go before we wind up? Did he enjoy it? He did? Not the vision you sent me.
I sent a video.
His mum's lying on the couch doing this one with the TV. Shut up. And then he tunes in and goes, family's loving it, mate. Sends me a video and his dad's like this.
Mum kept going, shut up, I'm watching the podcast. And then I look over at Dad and he's like, I'm like, yeah, it's a great podcast. Dad's loving it.
So funny. You need an Instagram for your parents. They're so hilarious.
Mate, we dropped in for lunch and we left at 1 o'clock in the morning.
You did too.
So good. They're real characters. I love them. So good.
Yeah. They need to come on the show.
I've said that. I've actually said that.
Dad's getting senile now. Like, I reckon he would have been good a year ago.
That's what we need. Okay. We need that.
We need to get the senile numbers
up. We need to get the senile numbers.
We'll get him before we put him in a nursing home. We better get him on before he goes any worse.
So dramatic.
Yeah. Thanks, Warren. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks.
No worries.
Great. Really appreciate it. It's been such a good yarn.
And we'll see
you in a couple of weeks, people.
Yeah.
Go check out some ley lines.
Yes. Portal Hunters. All right, take it away.
It's the feeling of freedom in the unknown. Everything is a polarity within the universe. Everything has a counter expression. So if something exists, the opposite must exist.
More, the numbers you were born with are your natural tools and talents, Kate. These are the radio stations that you are naturally plugged into.
I've been living on borrowed time for a very long time as well, luckily. So I have made sure that the time that I've had here, it's like a gift. My actual timeline, I really felt like if I could make it to 50, and I've done it now, I would be happy.
To what's going on in the world and to you seeing yourself in a totally new light, and you can never come back from that. It's like when a rubber band is stretched, it can no longer be put back to exactly where it was.
That's something that people will be able to take in or be able to use the lyrics at least and sing their own version of into the lays. And with the intent of clearing and cleansing and putting positive loving energy into the lay. Because we've had these Satanists hide the existence of the ley lines, co-opt the major portal spaces and do horrific things in those spaces for millennia. And what we need to do, and all we need is a critical number of people to do it, go in there and turn it around. When I realised that I'd actually chosen to come here, it was a realisation, not necessarily a memory. Then the pain went away.
Well, how exciting is this? We are definitely doing another event. Where's it going to be and who's it going to be with and all this stuff. And we can finally announce.
Going to go to Adelaide and we're going to have Rachel Vaughan presenting at the next one.
Down to Echuca, following the old stock route. There's acres of rice, keeping all the country green. Yeah, no better place in Australia you've ever seen.